Hello, good afternoon, good evening, and good morning. My name is Richard. I'm in London, and here today we have Letizia, who's based in Rome. We're just waiting for participants to come in from the waiting room before we begin. There's a slightly slower process using Zoom than some other platforms where people get in all at once. So if you're okay to bear with us for a few seconds, we'll just let the other participants come and join us. So if you have just joined, we're just welcome. Thank you for coming. And we're just waiting for seeing as more people come and join. I think we may be there. So thank you very much for coming today. As I said earlier, good afternoon, good evening, good morning. Today we have Letizia talking about assessing how to assess mediation. Letizia is a full-time researcher at Indira in Italy. She holds a BA in foreign languages, an MA in ELT and e-learning, and a PhD in applied linguistics, and works in continuing professional development for teachers, teacher trainers, and head teachers. She is a member of different working groups and scientific committees on CLIL and languages, both nationally and internationally, and that includes the CEFR, which is where we come to today for mediation. But before we start on the webinar, just very quickly, if you can have your phones to hand, because there's a little bit of interactivity towards the beginning around getting some of your opinions. And if you do have questions, please pop them into the question and answer or the chat, and hopefully we'll have time at the end to answer them. So with that, I'll leave you in Letizia's hands. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. Thank you for having me today, and thank you to Pearson for this opportunity. I'm very happy and privileged to be today here with you. I know you are from different countries, so going global is really an exciting experience. So thank you for being with us for the next hour. As Richard was saying, yes, I'm based in Rome, and I'm a researcher, and I've been involved in different projects. In particular relating to talking about the Common European Framework of reference, the companion volume, which is the latest document, the latest, let's say, version of the Common European Framework published by the Council of Europe in 2001. I had the privilege to cooperate with the experts from the Council of Europe, Brian North, Enrica Picardo, and also Tim Goodyear, that recently passed away. And I had the privilege to work with them, in particular on the online interaction descriptor, which is one of the new descriptors proposed by the companion volume. Since the beginning, where there was a consultation at the definition of this descriptor, and also recently for a project in Italy with the Inspector General Lange at the Ministry of Education, and a sample of schools in Italy working on these online interaction descriptors in a pilot project. So today we are going to talk about assessment, assessing mediation, but assessment in general, as a general area, which is an umbrella research and teaching and learning keyword. So we're going to start from your idea of assessment. So I'm going to ask you to, as Richard was saying, to grab your iPhone or your mobile or your or even your your tablet or whatever, and go to this website. I'm going to share with you in a second, which is Mentimeter. You may be familiar with it because it's one of the most popular tools for remote learning and teaching during this in particular this period of emergency, this period of distance remote teaching due to COVID-19. So you go to www.menti.com, which is the name of the tool, and then you are required to insert a code, and you will insert 3198544. 3198544. It's a code, and then you will find an editor, text editor, a window where you can write your idea of assessment in few words. Just could be a very short sentence, could be just a couple of words, or whatever you may feel. Something that may come up to your mind when you think about assessment, which I think it's a very demanding and a very broad concept for everyone, for every teacher teacher, for every educator. I think this, I see this, the first, the icebreaker. Thank you very much. Checking an advancement in language ability, which is great. Yeah, of course, we want to check advancement and progress. That's what we want to do. We want to always check, monitor, and scaffold and help our students, of course, in their progress. And so evaluating progress, of course, evaluate skills. And of course, when we talk about skills, we talk about language competence, about the communicative, the pragmatic, sociolinguistic competence, which is a very, very big, very wide area. We talk about quality and ability, evaluation, of course, finding out how well a student learned something. Yes, sure, we want to know how well a student learned something in terms of content, in terms of language, in terms of focus on form, but also specific bits of knowledge. So we want to know in which direction our students are going. Of course, grading students writing tests, we need to grade, of course, according to the different standards and the different curriculum, the state curriculum, so national curriculum. We need to grade our students somehow at a certain point. And we need tests, of course. We have standardized tests, for example, and we also have this teaching to test, which is only a part, of course, of assessment, because assessment is such a big picture. We want to not only, of course, teach our students how to pass a test, how to be, but we only need some other elements, because, of course, it's a wider, more complex scenario. Then some other very interesting inputs, like keeping a checking process on how students are doing in their learning process, of course. So it's always monitoring how they are going, or they are doing what they are doing. To evaluate cognitive, academic, and social-emotional conditions regarding a person's ability. This is just wonderful. It's just the this very wide, this very complex, these different dimensions, which are all together. So we need to take into account the cognitive sphere, so what we put into operation, what we activate, the thinking, our students' thinking skills, from the lower thinking skills a lot to the higher thinking skills, HOTS, according to Bloom's taxonomy. And I will go, I will further mention Bloom's taxonomy. But we need also to take into account the social-emotional sphere, all the affective. When we talk about, for example, the affective filtered by Krashen, we know that our students are under pressure when they are forced to speak, to interact in language that's not their native, their mother tongue, the native language. So we need to consider this comfort zone, this affective and social, emotional, and relational side, of course. Then identify students' progress, weaknesses and strengths, of course, is something that we need to take into account. And assessment means collecting evidence, pieces of evidence, to just identify our students' weaknesses and strengths. Work results accomplishments, grading our students, of course. Then we have evaluation of students' achievement, of course, students' achievement, students' progress. Then the action of assessing someone's knowledge in details we are interested in. So of course we can so our assessment can be tailor-made according to what we need to know, what we are in particular interested in. So very good point. Quizzes and short comparative assessments to see what level is every single pupil among his peers. This is very interesting. So you can use this can be a sort of course formative assessment. So quizzes, short comparative assessment is very interesting point. So just polls or quizzes that could be helpful to identify the first of all the general level and maybe yes common problems, common maybe challenges, and in particular maybe every single people among his peers. So very interesting. Measure the student's ability to express CEFR through the basic skills, of course. So the yeah, basic skills, and so the we need to assess. That could also be taken into account in the complex scenario that is not only that is represented not only by the basic skills but also the transversal skills, the so-called 21st century skills, and so on. So I thank you very much, all of you, for all these very interesting inputs. Relationship between theory and practice. This is something very interesting as well, a very interesting point. Theory and practice is something that makes our learning process, our learning pathway performative, because when we teach, and we are not always sure that this teaching action changes into a learning outcome, a learning process. So we can say that assessment is this relationship, is this kiss, this bridge between theory and practice, between teaching and learning. So we can really know how our teaching becomes performative, because our students' outcomes, of course, are evidence of the teaching process itself. Then quality and ability, criteria meeting. This is something that we need to establish in the in our assessment, especially when we talk about summative assessment, formal assessment. We need criteria, we need rubrics, and I'll show you some examples. So we need some criteria as a reference, that could be reference according to certain standards, for example, to certain levels. We want to, as a point of reference, according to maybe, yeah, of course, our standards at the curriculum and so on, according to specific needs that we have. A snapshot of skills. This is a very colorful, say, definition. It's a snapshot, yes. And what we do, yeah, with assessment is continuously taking snapshots, pictures of our students' performance, our students' skills in that particular moment, through particular piece of evidence, particular test, a particular that we want to deliver them. And what we would need to do is to collect all these different snapshots, all these different pictures, in order to reconstruct, to get the wider, the bigger picture of our students, which is made up of different pieces, like a puzzle. We want to collect, because of course each single picture is not on itself the idea of the general performance, the general communicative performance. And this also helps us to give our students this message of encouragement, never give up, because it's just if they probably failed in one test, one is only one snapshot, is only one picture, but they can take, of course, some more, and of course they can pass them and get better and better. Get information about your objectives. This is very interesting. We have our object, of course, we have our aims, our learning aims, our teaching aims, and assessment is also, of course, self-assessment is also self-assessment, is also a way to reshape, rethink our planning, our teaching strategies, our teaching pathway, in order to improve it, if necessary, in order to see what is working, what is not working, what can maybe change, because students' reactions were maybe not as expected, and so on. So of course is a way to encourage also our self-assessment and reflection also on ourselves, our mission we are researchers, or we are always, as Sean said, a reflective practitioner. Teachers are reflective. Teachers, researchers, educators are reflective practitioners, because we are always immersed in our action research field, which is our class, which is our daily teaching practices, and we always learn from our mistakes as well, and that's something that we need to use for, of course, further improvement and continuously reshaping, rethinking our teaching process. Okay, thank you very much to all the participants who accepted our game, our challenge, and just wanted to write their opinion and their ideas to make this hour a little bit more interactive. Thank you very much. So I'm going back to my slides to give you an overview of what is the idea of assessment in general terms from the research point of view. And also what I'm trying to do is to offer some inputs about web tools, about software, about technological solutions that may help you assess your students' mediation, but in general, assessment as a general umbrella, as a general action, as an integrating part of our teaching process, in particular during this remote or blended or hybrid teaching and learning due to COVID-19. We know that, well, more or less all over the world, we have we're having such hard times. I'm in Rome, in Italy now. We are experiencing, especially for upper secondary schools, only for upper secondary schools, 75 in all over Italy, 75% of remote teaching, and in some regions even full online teaching. Schools are closed, upper secondary schools are closed in some regions where the situation is particularly serious. So technology is nowadays so crucial to for education, for instruction at any level. So I hope the suggestions I will provide will be helpful for you. An attempted definition of assessment, measuring knowledge, skills, and attitudes by collecting and documenting empirical data. So measuring, and that's what you said, we measure knowledge, but we measure not only knowledge, but also skills, attitudes, also, so cognitive, the cognitive sphere, what you said, someone wrote on the Mentimeter, the socio-emotional sphere, the attitudes, the cognitive, but it's not only that, but also the whole, so from a holistic perspective of our students. And then we collect and document empirical data. So this is what we want to do when we want to get this bigger picture about our students. We need a piece of evidence. We need this piece of a test of the puzzle to and this is something that happens regularly and continuously during the daily teaching practice. We constantly, and we know how to do that, of course, because we constantly observe and monitor our students through all their activities, their behavior, their reactions to our inputs. And this is part, of course, of our formative assessment process. So we assess to provide a diagnosis and, of course, to take actions and improve and try to heal, let's say, this and improve, and especially for weaknesses. To set standards, and we need also to meet some certain standards, maybe according, of course, to national curriculum, national standards, and according to different countries, to evaluate progress, as you said, you wrote in the Mentimeter, to communicate results, to motivate performance. And this is motivation, engagement, is something that we need always to foster in our students, even if they fail. As I was saying, they may fail one snapshot, one piece, one test, but it's not something personal, of course. It's not something that is just a snapshot. I particularly like that definition for that particular test, that particular moment, in that particular situation that may be affected by some circumstances, by some particular, it's just a moment, and the student needs to get this message: never give up, so always try to go on. So this is our point of reference. As I was saying, this is the acronym that you may find now in generally speaking, because it's the original document published in 2001 by the Council of Europe, the CEFR, Common European Framework for Reference of Languages. Now with this edition, CV, companion volume, is this new acronym that includes this new version that was published provisionally in 2018, but just recently in April. Last April, it was the final version was published. You can easily download it from the Council of Europe website, which is just not only an integration, a companion anymore. The original idea was that, a sort of companion, but now it is actually, let's say, a new version of the original framework itself. So it's just a revised and integrated version. As I was saying, it took some years, this consultation process, because the Council of Europe decided that it was time to somehow integrate it according to the new features, the new challenges of the 21st century society, the knowledge society. And for example, the digital is one of the highlights of the online interaction is one of the new descriptors, as I was saying. And so after this long consultations with different stakeholders, this new version was published, and it is a really it's a very useful, and it's we can say the Bible for teachers, not only teachers of languages, clear teachers, but we can say also teachers in general, because if we recall the latest Council recommendation for a comprehensive approach to the teaching and learning of languages that was published in May 2019, language awareness is a transversal dimension, is a highlight for every transversal in the curriculum for any teachers. It's important to be aware of the language dimension, language as a tool for thinking, for making thinking visible, for learning, for languaging. So it's just a transversal tool that any teacher should be aware of. So this is the overall language proficiency as included in the CEFR CV, and of course this graph is important for assessment because it gives us the idea of how complex, how wide is the concept of overall language proficiency. We have general competencies, we have communicative language competencies, considering the speaker and so the learner from a holistic point of view in the particular context, so considering his or her own sociolinguistic pragmatic competencies, so the ability to interact according to the context with the interlocutor, using also all the plurilingual, his or her own plurilingual repertoire, non-verbal communication, gesture, and so on. And then we have this the four modes of communication, which is somehow goes beyond the classical four skills: reception, production, interaction, and mediation. And we have these communicative language strategies that are, of course, a wide range of strategies trying to foster our students' four modes of communication. These are the scale. This is the global, the overall mediation scale that you can find in CEFR-CV, but there are many other that go in particular in details. This is the overall scale where we start from pre-A1, which is another new thing about the CEFR-CV. The very young learners in this case is not available because it's not enough for mediation. So, and as we go on with the level towards B1, B2, C1, C2 in mediation, cooperative group learning becomes more and more important. So how to be to mediate a concept, mediate text that could be oral, written text, manipulate in order to make meaning and in collaborative activities, acting as a mediator of knowledge, of ideas, trying to avoid conflicts and in this global perspective. This is the other, the umbrella graph that you find also in the CEFR-CV, when you find, yes, mediation activities, mediating a text with all the different activities, the different that can refer to, of course, text, written text, oral text, the way the manipulation of content in order to maybe transform information into another code, another like from text into visual, into infographics, and so on. Mediation concepts, when we, especially in group, collaborating in group, and so acting as a facilitator, mediator with peers, mediating communication in pluricultural space. So we have this pluricultural, intercultural dialogue, acting as intermediary, as a mediator, which is very important. So avoiding disagreements, and mediation strategies, which are the strategies to explain, mediate concept, to explain simplified text. And in this context, I would like to mention this new, very new report that was just launched in last Thursday. The report from the global, the OECD PISA 2018 global competencies. That was so you can find on the website the video of where Schleicher, the OECD director, launches this report that collects the results from the PISA 2018 global competence test. And as Schleicher said, global competence is about building curiosity, opening minds. It's about compassion, opening hearts, and it's about courage, mobilizing our cognitive, social, and emotional resources to build a more human world. And I think this is a really deep message that has a lot to do with mediation, because it's what we encourage our students to do, to mediate, to facilitate, to avoid conflicts, to overcome to go beyond their single perspective, try to understand multiple perspectives, the perspectives of others. And so intercultural dialogue is of course part of mediation of the mediation process, and so in this respect, of course, this global competence framework is really relevant. And this is just one of the graphs that you can find in online in the page of OECD PISA 2018 Global Framework report. Students' ability to understand the perspective of others, that, as I was saying, has a lot to do, of course, with mediation. You can find the different countries that delivered the test, and it's really interesting to go in deeper into this report, because it can give you an idea of really how complex our world is in this in this area, and also actions that we can take in this field. I would also like to mention this project, which is called Plural Literacies, Teaching for Deeper Learning, and it's a project promoted by the ESML, the European Center for Modern Languages in Graz. European Center of Modern Languages is the institution of the Council of Europe working with languages, plurilingualism, excellence in languages, with a lot of projects in this field. I'm privileged to be part of the consultancy team for this project, led by Doc Hoyle, Oliver Meyer, and Kevin Schack. This model you find on a website on Google. If you just Google PTL Plural Literacies, you find this video, 3D model of the interactive video with Doc Hoyle that you may know, commenting on this model, which is a very interactive and dynamic model, describing our learning environment as a sort of learning ecology. Learning ecology where there are these four continua, communicating continuum, which is the the communicating process involving our students, engaging our students in using languages that could be native, their native language, that could be L1, L2, L3, and so on. Using, of course, a language with a proper purpose, genre, mode, style, according to the context, and so on. Then the personal growth continuum, which is all the holistic perspective that we were mentioning about our students' cognitive skills, but also socio-emotional sphere as well. And then we have the conceptualizing continuum, which are the cognitive skills and the concepts, procedures, and skills to be activated. And the mentoring continuum, where we find assessment as a part of the mentoring process, that is the teacher's role about designing, evaluating, scaffolding, and giving feedback and assessment. And we'll see how feedback important is in the assessment process. So we talk about mindful assessment, and I refer here, the reference here is a publication, The 6 Essential Fluencies of Innovative Learning. When they talk about, these authors talk about fluencies. Fluencies means a deep mastery. It's going beyond literacy, more than literacy, is fluency, to be fluent in a wide range of dimensions, which are the 21st century skills. And just recently, the World Economic Forum released a new version of the skills for 2025. So it is time to rethink the relationship between teaching and learning and assess the crucial skills students need to succeed in the 21st century. So we need to rethink, of course, assessment as well, taking into account all these different fluencies, solution, creativity, collaboration, media, information, and global digital citizenship, so global competencies, as we were mentioning about the framework. So meaningful assessment and feedback are valid, are individualized, understandable, communicate high expectations, try to lower emotional barriers. We have different, of course, formats. We have formative assessment, summative assessment, self-assessment, peer assessment, and we're going to go in deeper in some of them. Then meaningful, authentic assessment, we can have a wide variety. Someone wrote in the Mentimeter that we need a variety of methods, of tools to just collect all these pieces that we were talking about, to reconstruct the puzzle, to make the puzzle. So not only one. Observation, teacher-made tests, quizzes, exams, written compositions, or presentations, projects, experiments, performance tasks, portfolios. So everything is useful to have this bigger picture. You may be familiar with this definition: assessment of learning and assessment for learning. Assessment of learning, summative, test, exams linked to standardized tests mainly. We want to track progression at the end of a module, of a course, and so they're quite summative, quite a final, final assessment. While assessment for learning is this formative assessment covering, let's say, an entire school year. And this picture is taken from the Assessment Reform Group website, where assessment for learning is defined as the process of seeking and interpreting evidence for use by learners and their teachers to decide where the learners are in their learning, where they need to go, and how best to go there, to get there. So it's something that happens continuously every day, and on a daily basis. We can use students' reflections, conversations with students, peer assessment, all these different tools to collect all this evidence. That's why assessment for learning is planned, reactive, and reciprocal. It's reciprocal because we, as we were saying, we learn from our students. So it's also self-assessment that is important, because it's a way for us to reshape our teaching style, techniques, strategies for further improvement. This picture has been taken from a very interesting webinar series by Pearson English, Spring Days. I really like this circle, talking about assessment for learning as a cycle with specific purposes that are all relevant, and always highlighting, always reinforcing our students' self-esteem, because that's the message that we need to give our students. They cannot lose their self-esteem, even if they can fail. We said they can fail some tests, but that doesn't mean that is their personal failure. Of course, it's just one snapshot. Then focus, never lose focus, and of course responsibility, because it's a way to encourage them to take responsibility, to be responsible for their action, for their future action, of course their improvement. Well, self-assessment, as we were saying, is a way to build metacognitive competence, because our students need to become independent learners, and so we need to help them reach this goal. We can use something like emoticons, like sort of a way to elicit their reaction, their reflection on how they are going, if they are finding any challenges, any problems, and so on. This famous KWH chart is a very useful tool. What I already know, what I want to know, what I learned about my topic. So it's a way to guide them in this reflection. So my previous knowledge, my curiosity, what I want to know about that topic, and then maybe at the end, what I learned, or maybe the problems that I found, the difficulties, something that I need to further investigate. Peer assessment is another very important aspect, a very important dimension, because when we receive feedback from our peers, of course, is another has another impact compared to feedback coming from the teacher. We learn from our peers, from the peers' mistakes, and it's a mutual enrichment. And of course, we need, as we were saying, this social emotional sphere, which is so important to take into account the Krashen's affective filter, our students' anxiety. So we need to especially in this period of remote teaching and learning, it's particularly important to take into account this dimension, and so how delicate is to, for example, to speak to interact through the the digital tools and the platforms. And so it's something that, of course, may impact their performance. Feedback, we mentioned feedback, you mentioned feedback. Feedback is a key word, of course, in assessment. And that's Hattie, John Hattie, the famous scholar, mentioning the importance of feedback. The most powerful single moderator that enhances achievement is feedback. This doesn't mean using many tests and providing over prescriptive directions. It means providing information about how and why the student understands and misunderstands, and what directions the students must take to improve. So this is what we need to do with feedback, to give them the idea about their direction, the direction they are taking, about the what they understand or misunderstand, in order to avoid, in order to clarify. And so Hattie, in his very ambitious meta study, collected different strategies, different techniques, ranking them according to the impact they can have on deep learning. Here you can have an idea about formative evaluation and the feedback you find here as well, among top 10 influences on achievement on deep learning. So it is really important to give feedback to our students. And feedback, I really like this poster that has that collects different aspects of feedback that, of course, must be appropriate, descriptive, credible, proactive, collaborative, non-judgmental, tailored, embedded in the culture. This is something that takes into account the global competencies, the intercultural dialogue we were mentioning, based on behavior, focused, timely. This is crucial. We need to provide feedback just in time, just in that particular moment, because otherwise it loses its effect. It's just a way to intervene just in that particular moment that is relevant. An example of a protocol taken by the Project Zero, Harvard Graduate School of Education, and it's called the Ladder of Feedback, which is a protocol that can guide students in giving collective peer feedback. Imagine a group of students, so students working in groups on projects, on realizing maybe digital outputs or posters or whatever as project-based learning, and then the other groups will, the other peer, the classmates need to give feedback to a presentation, for example. In this way, they are guided to provide feedback, but according to the steps: clarifying questions first, commenting on strengths, values of the work, then concerns, so weaknesses, and suggestions. So I would do that, I would suggest you, and so on. So certain steps, certain times, and also balancing both values and concerns from different, from the classmates, is a way to elicit a constructive and somehow balanced objective feedback as well. Bloom's taxonomy, we mentioned Bloom's taxonomy at the beginning because we always activate Bloom's taxonomy, the different, in different steps, our students' cognitive thinking skills, from the LOTS, lower order thinking skills, remember, understand, apply, to the LOTS, lower order thinking skills, analyze, evaluate, and create. So we need to take into account Bloom's taxonomy to assess, of course, to assess all the tasks, to assess all the activities that we may want to suggest, we may want to deliver, to propose to our students. And to this extent, I would like to suggest you this interactive wheel, which is wonderful, where there are many wheels that you can find. Interactive wheel. If you Google Bloom's taxonomy interactive wheel, you find different examples. A couple of them are really brilliant because they are movable. You can move this wheel that you can see here, and according to the different steps, you can find here also the different different activities that you can suggest to students. You can organize in a class, but also in this gray box you can see for each step. Here we're talking about evaluating, for example, which is the last the last lot. You find here the outcome verbs. You find the teaching strategies that you may implement, like demonstrate processes, case studies, and so on. Subject matter examples, so you can find some examples for math, English, history, and so on, so practical activities. And there's also this specific part about assessment, so tasks that require students to test, monitor, judge, or critique readings, performances, and so on. So you have this interactive wheel is outstanding. I find it brilliant because you have suggestions on how to plan, implement, use different teaching strategies, different activities you can propose to your students, but also the relevant assessment that you can organize. So let's go in deeper, talking about technologies. I'm going to suggest some examples. You then received the slides, so I hope you'll have the time then to go online and try some of these web tools I'm going to suggest you, with no ambition of being exhaustive, because the web the net is full of web tools, of examples, and these are just yes, just some possible solutions. As we were saying, the role of learning technologies in language learning in CLEL is not new, is not something that is related to COVID-19 emergency. Putting the power of technology to work for our students requires a broadly conceived approach to educational change that integrates new technologies and curricula with new ideas about learning, teaching, and assessment. So it's just reshaping all the process, also using learning technologies. And we have also recommendation from the European Commission long before COVID-19, encouraging the use of learning technologies to enhance our students' language skills. And also we have a lot of studies, research in the field of CALL, computer-assisted language learning, MAL, mobile assisted language learning, TEL, technology enhanced language learning. So just encouraging the use of technologies for languages. So we talk about e-assessment, that is this E, of course, e-commerce, email, and so on, for the digital dimension of, so the assessment component, the E component for the digital dimension. And now some examples. Kaizina is one of the tools that I would propose, that I would use for feedback, for oral feedback through voice recording. So we can record our voice in commenting, for example, a piece of paper, a piece of text produced by our students. In that particular part, that particular paragraph, for example, where there are weaknesses that we want to highlight in speaking and voice, our audio file, our voice recorded, so that the students can listen to this comment and immediately intervene, immediately correct or what else. Then I'm going quickly because I see that time is running out. But as I said, it's something that you will further. You'll receive the slides, and then you can spend more time, hopefully, with these tools. For portfolio is a very useful way to collect this evidence. So you can have your students collect this sort of piece of evidence of different works, different activities, so that they can go back and so recall and revise, or maybe see what to activate their more metacognitive sphere, and try to understand, for example, what is missing, if they need to further develop some areas and so on. And CISO is an example of tool, and also Mahara, the next one, is another example of platforms for e-portfolios. So you can create and register your students and have them insert their activities, their files, their work, and it's a way for you to check, monitor their progress, and for them to go there and revise, and maybe have an idea of so it's a sort of memory of their learning journey. Edulastic is a platform. It's particularly aligned with the American USA standards, but can be used worldwide. There are some tests that you can among them you can choose among the tests provided by the platform, but of course you can choose a subject, and you can create your own test, and it's a very rich platform. Talking about speaking, about mediation and mediating oral tests. These tools are tools for a sort of speaking forum. It's not a real interaction, not a real mediation, because it's something that in Vocaroo, for example, it's a sort of speaking forum where the students can interact, but asynchronously, recording their voice, maybe in a sort of question and answers, in a talking forum, a speaking forum, where they interact among each other, following their teachers' inputs, and then there's this sort of flow of asynchronous interaction with all these different audio files that could be, it could be interesting to have this sort of interactive speaking forum. Poll everywhere is very similar to Mentimeter. That's the one that we used at the beginning, but there are many allowing you to organize, to set this sort of polls, quick. Someone wrote in the Mentimeter at the beginning, quick poll, quick quizzes for brainstorming and for just checking their progress. This is very interesting, so they can use their phone, their mobile device, and immediately interact, immediately respond to some certain inputs. Now comment is for writing. For writing, this is very, I think it's helpful for mediating text, that is assessing also mediation of text, that is, that part of the CFR CV that I showed at the beginning. It's really powerful. It's really effective. You have this the possibility to insert a text. In this case, you have the audio file and also the text that is written here, and then the students can comment, can interact, can select certain parts of the text, and you can see the flow of the discussion on the right. On some certain paragraph, some certain sentence, they can maybe rephrase, they can use, maybe they can comment, they can express their point, and creative expression towards a piece of literature, a piece of text is another interesting part of the Common European Framework C companion volume. So what is interesting here is the manipulation of the text that you can suggest, that you can provide, and the students will interact among each other, will interact and and will mediate the text, because they will respond to the text in different ways. That could be, you know, yes, interpretation, commenting, opinions, or just rewording, rephrasing, and so on. This tool is really, really amazing. Comment Bubble is for videos. So you can have your students create their videos and embed in this tool, or some other videos from the internet, from YouTube. They are embedded here, and you have this very colorful reactions from the different students that can comment on some particular bits, some particular minutes of the video, and then you see the comment timeline. So maybe the parts that are more popular, that are maybe, or that can represent weaknesses and so on. So it's a way to collect multimedia, multimodal feedback from a video, and then have this collective, let's say, feedback, from the class, for example. Then at Puzzle, another web tool working with videos, you can embed your videos, and you can suggest, you can interrupt, insert, and you can manipulate the video and insert maybe a question, like in this case, a multiple choice question, an open question, or also comment. You can have your students comment on some bits, specific bits of the video. You can propose any further discussion, and so it's a way to mediate, to manipulate this video. And of course, students themselves can create their own video and upload in this tool, and then of course they can themselves ask questions and maybe suggest those questions maybe to their friends. Going quickly towards the end, for a couple of other tools like Socrative for quizzes. So if you want to, yes, just very easily create quizzes, multiple choice, true, false, short answers, and so on. Socrative is very, very useful and very user friendly, and the same is Quizlet. You can find, and you can also find ready-made quizzes, ready-made tests, where you can select, and then you can just so start from ready-made ones, or create your own ones from scratch. Boom Writer is very nice for, especially for young learners, for stories, assignments, and journals. So journals like their learning diaries, their portfolio, e-portfolio, assignments and stories. This is very nice for have them write, for so engage them in writing. Also competition, because it's this sort of competition in different steps: read, write, revise, vote, chapter winners. So they are engaged in writing chapters, for example, of a story, and they have to provide feedback, anonymous feedback, and then also you know, that's a winner. So you may have a story published in the local magazine, a school magazine, or what else. It's very interesting and engaging for, especially for young learners, but it's also because the graphic is very nice. Rubrics. You mentioned, someone of you, someone at the beginning wrote about criteria, and we set criteria in rubrics, like language rubrics. In this case, you have accuracy, fluency, and interaction, because we want to focus on language. We want to focus on CLIL, for another example, where we have content and language. This is equally balanced on content and language. You have you know, different different criteria, and you have different descriptors. You want to talk about CLIL, which is the CLIL is one of my research area, CLIL with technologies, content, language, and ICT. So you have also learning technologies. you want also to focus on the digital, literacy, digital competencies. Self-evaluation and student grid. You have this grid is an example of grid to foster self-assessment, self-evaluation. This is a tool that can help you help your students reflect on their personal progress. So, for example, you can have an idea here about evaluation of the lesson as a whole, content acquisition, concept development, involvement in communication, use of L2. So you just foster your students' metacognition and reflection on different aspects of the use of the language. And so is a tool that can help you foster this particular awareness. Peer assessment, when you want your students to reflect on among peers, so just in this case you have a sort of competition that is not a real, of course, should be somehow students should be guided towards this. It's not a real competition, but it's a mutual enrichment. So we want to reflect, for example, I can do this in an excellent way, but I can, and so I can maybe help my friend that is maybe weak on that. On the contrary, I'm weak in this other aspect, and I can learn from my peer, from my friend who's better there. So it's a way to guide our students towards this objective of dialogue, of mutual understanding, mutual enrichment, learning from the peers' mistakes, but also from their peers' strengths, of course. And this is an example of peer assessment grid. Just a couple of tools that can help you construct, that can help you design rubrics, Rubistar and 4 rubrics, but there are many tools that you can use. You can surf among different ready-made rubrics, and then you can also start from scratch. So you can start from you can build up your own rubrics, or you can surf, and maybe you can find some examples, some templates to start from according to your needs. Of course, they're so useful because you can also have your you can save, you can edit your rubrics, and of course for further deployment in your class. With this, I'm going towards the end, and I would like to launch to announce these 2 handy little guides that I had the privilege to publish, to write for Pearson, and they are going global. They are in English. One is the handy little guide to distance teaching, how to use learning technologies in EFL class. So here there are different web tools, and so as this is we say remote teaching and learning is an emergency is a need for the majority of the teachers all over the world. Here I'm providing some tools, some suggestions, also with pedagogical and with what is the methodological background behind that. And the other one, the other little guide to debate, how to foster debating skills in EFL class, because debate is one of my research areas, in particular with focus on EFL and clear class. And here I give some suggestions on how to build up your debate environment in your class, also with a focus on remote teaching and learning. So I apologize, I went beyond my time limit. This is my email, and I'm so sorry that probably we won't have time for questions, but I will be happy to answer all your questions by email. If you want to write to me, I will be happy to answer. I give the floor to Richard. I'm so sorry I went beyond the time limit, and I thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thank you, Letizia, for taking us through assessment there. Yes, unfortunately, we have run over time, so we don't have time for questions. But if you do have one, please email Letizia at the email that is displayed on the screen now. So with that, thank you for all of you for coming and attending this webinar. There will be a recording which we posted on the website english.com/mediation. But particularly thank you to Letizia for taking us through this journey around mediation, both today and last week when you looked at teaching mediation generally. So with that, I think we'll sign off, and thank you very much.